I'm Neil Cavuto, and you're watching Your World. And the president is set to hold what he calls a listening session with students, parents, teachers at the White House on mass shootings, including survivors from Parkland, Sandy Hook, and others. John Roberts is at the White House now with the very, very latest. John, what can we expect?
Neil, good afternoon to you. We expect this is probably going to start within 15 minutes or so. We know that it will be led by the president, the vice president, the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. There will be 6 students and their parents from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in attendance. Initially, the plan was also to have some representatives from Columbine, but it looks like they're not going to be in that meeting this afternoon. There's also parents and students from 3 D.C. area high schools, as well as representatives from Sandy Hook Promise, which was created by parents of victims of the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting in Connecticut, the founders of Rachel's Challenge, which is an organization dedicated to lowering school violence, and as well the mayor of Parkland will be in attendance as well. This is going to go out live, so this will be a TV event that you can watch as it unfolds. Now, the president will be in listening mode this afternoon, but he's already been kicking around some ideas with his closest advisors and people on the outside as to what could be done to address this epidemic, not only of school shootings, but mass shootings as well, as we saw last October the 1st in Las Vegas, where all of those people were so mercilessly gunned down. The president did take some action in the wake of the Las Vegas shooting just yesterday, reaching out to Attorney General Jeff Sessions to see about banning those so-called bump stocks or slide fire mechanisms that virtually turn a semi-automatic rifle into a fully automatic rifle. The rate of fire might be a little bit slower, but it doesn't really count for much in terms of how much slower it is compared to a fully automatic weapon. The president also considering raising the minimum age for people to either possess or buy a gun. Currently in federal law, it's 21 to buy a handgun, 18 to buy a long gun, which includes rifles, the assault style, and as well as shotguns. But, Neil, he may have to defer to states on that because it really is a patchwork across America. In some states, like Massachusetts, you can be as young as 15 and possess a long gun with the approval of your parents. The president also looking at ways to tighten up background checks for people who are purchasing weapons as well, so the people who are mentally ill do not fall through the cracks and end up in possession of a firearm, as happened last week in Parkland. Neil?
You know, John, looking real quickly at the list of some of the attendees, and particularly the students and teachers and parents from Florida, more the point of the Parkland area, do we know how they were chosen? As you know, and you would over the weekend, a lot of critics of the president is tweeting back and forth, and I'm wondering how this whole selection came about.
Well, I'm told that these were people who expressed interest in being part of the discussion this afternoon. One name that's not on the list, but a person who was invited, is David Hogg. You've seen him on television a lot since last Wednesday. He is the son of the FBI agent who has done a lot of television interviews. He was also at that rally in Tallahassee today. He was invited, but he said that he wanted to go to the Tallahassee rally and couldn't attend here at the White House. But again, these were people who expressed an interest in being part of the discussion. As to how folks from the local schools were chosen, the White House hasn't detailed us on that. And again, they hope to have a couple of representatives from Columbine High School, but it looks like they will not be in attendance this afternoon. Neil?
All right, thank you, my friend. John Roberts at the White House. Just to let you know, all of this on a day. Protests that were originally started in Tallahassee, Florida, have extended pretty much nationwide, and they're going to go even more nationwide. It's better than a dozen schools originally in just the Florida area were participating, and it spread way beyond that, most of them demanding action on the part of state legislators and others to not just give lip service to gun reform and that sort of thing, but to do something about it. The read right now from Aaron Fleischer, the former White House press secretary for President George W. Bush. So, you're seeing this and how this all went down and how it continues to be a big national issue now, with some of these same protesters planning to do the same in Washington next month, others promising follow-up rallies even ahead of that. How should the president handle this pent-up, different kind of rage this go-around? Because a lot of it's coming from kids.
He needs to do 2 things. He needs to listen today and act tomorrow. Look, this is an issue, Neil, where our country finally has to get serious about this violence in the schools. We cannot be this type of country. We cannot be. Children should not have to go through this. Parents shouldn't have to go through this. And the solution is in the hands of adults. And it doesn't have to involve gun control. There are a series of things that can and should be done to prevent guns from falling into the hands of people who should never have guns in the first place. And that could include raising the age to 21 for all long arms and firearms, handheld guns, which is already the law of the land for firearms is 21. I think the issue that's really going to test us is going to be how far do we violate people's civil liberties if there's been any involvement in mental illness issues. At what point do we say you have a restraining order, you cannot have a weapon? And I think we have to push in that direction because that's really where the fault line is.
You know, I mean, you talk about the kind of thing that are alternatives to outright, gun reform or that sort of thing outside of raising the age for certain weapons, that sort of thing. That for a lot of those kids in particular and their parents as well, anything short of a dramatic revamp of our gun laws isn't going to cut it. So whether that's wise or not and whether that's the proper strategy or not, isn't the debate here. I think for the moment, if people then are expecting, or those kids are expecting, or their parents are expecting, that the gun laws are not going to be as much a part of this, then how does the president, how do these politicians handle the inevitable wrath that will come their way?
Well, the gun laws will be affected. The things that I'm talking about change your ability to get a gun. And that's the core of the issue here. I think tougher background checks as well to limit the number of people who can get guns. Those are the types of things we need to be doing. The issue is then, do you ban certain categories of guns? And I suspect that is where there will be a dividing line, too.
And that's what a lot of these kids want. Now, a lot of them protesting today. Not all, I want to stress, because it came from all points of view. A lot of them want to see fewer of these guns, fewer of these types of weapons on the streets. Then what?
And some of them very articulately and emotionally made the case to basically repeal the Second Amendment. Several of them raised the issue that it was written 240 years ago and we don't really need it today. So there are different points of view about how far to go there. And I don't suspect it's not going to get passed into law. And the reason for that is because there's an entire broader category of people who are legal possessors of weapons, and their rights shouldn't be infringed. If you own a weapon and you never have done anything wrong with that weapon, why should the state be able to take that weapon away from you? Look, if I thought taking AR-15s away would fix this issue, I'd be for it. I just don't think that is effective. I don't think it will work.
Not even in combination with some of the other stuff you alluded to?
Well, I think the other stuff can and should pass, and I think it will have an impact, and that's what I want to see. I think if you start going down the line of we have to outlaw categories of guns, first of all, I don't think the Democrats are there to vote for it. They didn't after Newtown. After Newtown, when emotions were terribly raw, the Democrats had 55 seats in the Senate. They put that to a vote. 16 Democrats voted against it, including 9 who are in the Senate today. That was a revision of the assault weapon ban, is what was put on the table in 2013. So I don't even know if the votes are there to do that. And the point is that the effective action to take? So I welcome the voice of these students. I think it's the right thing for them to go to Tallahassee, let their voices be heard. But ultimately, the decision has got to be made by legislators, state and federal, who take all the different points of view into account. But now the time has come to act. And if I'm the president, Neil, I lead this train. I come up with a package of what the 4 or 5 changes are. I demand that Congress pass them. Donald Trump was elected to get things done in Washington. This is the ultimate time to get things done.
Well put, Ari. Thank you very, very much. Again, we're about 7 minutes away from this listening session that Ari alluded to, going on at the White House, the president meeting with various groups, including those directly affected in Florida, students, their parents, those who've survived other shootings and their parents, and what to make of where we go now. Florida Republican State Representative, House Majority Whip Dane Eagle with us right now. Representative, thank you for taking the time. Did you get a chance to meet any of these kids today, any of their chaperones, teachers, parents?
And Neil, good to be with you. Thanks for having me on. I did. About 30 minutes ago, I had about a dozen of them in my office, had a great, robust discussion with them. I can't tell you how brave these kids are to have seen and gone through what they just did, and then within days making a trip up here to speak with legislators. It's remarkable, and I had probably one of the best discussions that I've had yet on this topic with these kids.
What did they want from you, and what did you tell them?
They wanted to make sure that this never happens again, and I told them we will do everything in our power to ensure that. and they were open to the discussion. What can we do to do that? And it comes down to a lot of things. It's about building that puzzle work together and make sure that our schools are safe, that mental health issues are in place, that someone like this monster, Nicholas Cruz, can never get his hands on a weapon whatsoever ever again. And then if someone like this does want to cause harm, that they're not able to get into a school and cause this kind of mass tragedy on our children.
I heard some of the students, not all, I was on the air for a good chunk of it earlier today, but some of them were demanding getting some of these weapons themselves off the street. What do you think of that? How did you address that?
So they talked about outright bans and what can we do, and we had a very healthy, robust discussion about that. And we talked about, if we ban it, does this even solve the problem? If we ban assault rifles today, and mind you, what's the definition of assault rifle? It might be something different to you, to me. A bill that was discussed or was proposed to be brought up through tactics yesterday was an outright ban on all guns together. We have a Second Amendment in this country. We have a constitutional right to protect ourselves, and we can look at that and have discussions to make sure that people that are mentally ill are not getting their hands on weapons, but we cannot do an outright strip of guns altogether. So let's look at that and have that discussion. We will do so, but even if we were ever to even discuss an outright ban, we will still have mass killings in this country. So we need to look at ways to make sure that those mental health checks are in place, that people like this monster, are not getting their hands on weapons, and beyond that, make sure that our schools are secure and safe, because even if they can't get their hands on a gun, they get their hands on a knife or a vehicle, whatever it is they want to do to inflict the most harm possible.
Representative, a lot of them were demanding to know where Governor Rick Scott was and wanted to talk to him. Do you know if that ever happened?
I'm not sure whether Governor Scott was even in the building today. I know he's been having robust discussions with everybody. I'll tell you that since this happened while we were on the floor last week, Democrats, Republicans came together under Speaker Corcoran's leadership, the current Speaker of the House, and we have been working on a robust plan, which we look forward to introducing shortly. These discussions have been ongoing.
What will that robust plan be? What will that robust plan be?
I look forward to releasing the details as they come out, but it will look at certain weapons and whether they should be, whose hands they're getting into. It'll look at those mental health checks, and it'll look into making sure that our schools are secure. And there's a lot of details that go into all that. So those discussions are ongoing, and they're happening in a bipartisan manner. They're happening with the Senate. They're happening with the governor. And as soon as those are ready to be released, which is very, very soon, the whole world will know about it, and I'm pleased that we'll be able to get something done.
All right, Representative, thank you very much. I want to bring Ben Stein into this mix right now. He's a former speechwriter for President Nixon, author of the Capitalist Code, among other things. And Ben, what's happening now is there is a move afoot here not to just let another school shooting go by unaddressed, and that this time might be different in that it's kids getting directly involved. First of all, what do you think of that? And what do you think of their message? Because most of those kids, at least, want to do something about banning, let's say, guns like the AR-15.
I think it's a damn good idea to ban the AR-15. AR-15 is a weapon. It's extremely seductive. It looks like a weapon of war. It makes a person who's a big nerd be able to go into a gun shop, buy it, come out feeling like he's Rambo. There's no reason to have it. It's not an ideal target shooting weapon. It's not an ideal hunting weapon. It's not an ideal home defense weapon. It's just a weapon that is to take people into the realm of fantasy, and then some of those people are deluded, and they'll take it into the realm of reality. Take that, the AR-15 and its many, many, many cousins, and mix them up with violent video games, and you've got a recipe for disaster. And the disasters has happened too many times now. It doesn't work. I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I've probably got as many guns as all your other economists put together, but the Second Amendment is not to have military-style weapons in the hands of civilians.
All right, now there'll be many of those who are advocates of, the Second Amendment and concerned that as soon as you start taking one gun away, it's a matter of time before you take others away, and it's a slippery slope, you say?
I say to that, it's a camel's nose going under the tent. But what I'm saying is, look, we banned machine guns in the period from 1934 to 36. It did not lead to taking away all weapons. There is some reasonableness on the part of representatives and members of the government, some, not a lot, but some, and they are not going to take away all weapons. People want weapons. People need weapons. It's very important that a big, fat, old, nerdy guy like me be able to have a weapon on his nightstand next to him in case some strong young guy comes in and wants to take away all my copies of my books about economics. And it's very, very, very important that people have home defense weapons. It's very important that people who are target shooters, hunters, have access to weapons. Nobody needs a gun that looks like a gun out of a war movie. Nobody needs that in America.
By the way, this big fat and old thing, you're not big and fat. Let me finally, I did want to get on how the president handles this, because he's going to have some people whose nerves are pretty raw in that room, and I don't know how these individuals were selected, but, you know, they're upset. They're very, very upset. And some might get in his face. Now, we don't know that, but it's possible. And when people are upset, they say things. How do you advise him?
I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about him. He can handle himself. He is the one guy. You know, only Nixon could go to China because everybody knew he was anti-communist. Only Trump can ban the AR-15 because everyone knows he's pro-Second Amendment. He's not going to be pushed around by the wimpy guys in think tank offices on K Street in Washington, D.C. He is the one guy who can take away the AR-15 and its causes. And believe me, there's still going to be plenty of great weapons out there. There'll be plenty of great gun stores out there. I'm a huge fan of gun stores. I love being in gun stores. As I say, I have an awful lot of guns. I just don't think we need a weapon that says to the person buying it, please use me to kill people.
You know, Ben, much has been made from privacy advocates and the like who say, be careful what you wish for when you want to better screen those who might have access to guns, or put out there for all to know what medications they're taking, either for activity disorders or a host of other ailments, because they have a scarlet letter on them, and all of a sudden they're ostracized all the more. What do you think of that?
I think that there's already such an enormous infringement on privacy in so many ways that this is just another pinprick, and it is not very important. Look, we're seeing something really stunning happen. Our schools are becoming slaughterhouses. That is an outrage in a society as wonderful as the United States of America. This is the best country in the entire world by a million miles, the best thing God ever made among human societies. We can accept a little tiny bit of an infringement on privacy in order to keep these massacres from happening again. And by the way, I would not only stop manufacturing these AR-15s, I would stop selling them. I would say to the people who have them, you can keep them in your closet as a souvenir, but let's not have any more sales of them. Let's just call it quits on the assault rifles. You've had your fun. Now let's call it quits.
All right, I can't repeat some of the emails I'm getting about you right now.
And it ain't fun, by the way, to kill people. It ain't fun to kill people. It ain't fun to send your children off to school. You raise a good point.
But these are heated times. All right, Ben Stein, thank you very, very much.
God bless you, Neil. God bless you.
Same here, my friend. We are still waiting to hear from the president in this listening session of the White House. Ahead of that, let's go to Fox News correspondent Rich Edson in Tallahassee, Florida, with the latest on some very angry young people who are not satisfied right now. Sir.
Good afternoon, Neil. And there were several events that converged on the Florida Capitol complex behind me, a rally that just let out a couple of hours ago and then ended up filtering back in to the Florida Capitol complex, where a number of the students here protesting were chanting, "You work for us, vote them out. Where's Rick Scott, the governor of Florida? And hear us now." Now, the rally in front of the Capitol complex, that was attended by a number of local students, university students, some local high school students, even some students from Parkland, where the shooting took place last week. But there were also gun activists there, others. It was more of a larger type rally. In the building behind that, that's where the actual legislating happens, and that's where the students from the high school in Parkland went today to lobby their legislators, and they spoke afterwards about the terrible experience, life-changing experience that they had last week, and about what they're expecting from their lawmakers. Neil?
Rich, was there concern that these legislators were not hearing them?
Absolutely, and they explicitly said so, and they explicitly said that they were worried that some of the legislators were interested in basically placating them, but then not moving on legislation in which they only have a couple of weeks to do so before this term ends here in Florida.
Now, they're going to take this national. They promised to do that. To what end?
They are, and there are other students who are lobbying in Washington and around the country.
All right, my friend.
But again, it's a matter of just keeping it up.
All right, thank you very, very much. We are going to pause for a moment now to let our Fox stations join us right now. This is Fox News coverage. The president is about to hold a listening session with students and teachers in the wake of the Florida high school shooting. I'm Neil Cavuto in New York, and the president wanted this moment to get an idea from those who directly had to deal with this. The president is using this opportunity now to speak to those who were direct victims of this or knew those who were, and a chance to address gun violence and find some solutions for it. This listening event planned after last week's tragic shooting. Now the president is going to find a way through this listening or to find out how to move forward. Again, this group includes those not only who were in Florida last week at the time of the shooting, including some students, their parents, some teachers, but those from other prior events that the president says has simply got to stop. This has become routine. This has happened too often. And the president has made it very clear he hopes to put an end to it. And this could be the beginning.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to have you here. And we're going to be listening to some of your suggestions. I've heard some of them. And we're going to do something about this horrible situation that's going on. And we're going to all figure that together. So I want to listen, and then after I listen, we're going to get things done. I thought we'd start off, Pastor, if you could possibly say the prayer, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We thank you for this day that you have given us. And Father, we just know that the things that have happened here in America, that there's something that you have planned, and it's going to be a great one. Because we're going to get America back on track where it needs to be with our children, with our adults, everybody that's involved. And Father, I ask you right now that you would send your Holy Spirit that would comfort us through this time. And you said you would send him. And right now we embrace him. Your word it clearly says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, you are here in the midst of us. And so, Holy Spirit, we ask just to comfort the families. Comfort every one of them. And even the families that are just, that didn't lose a loved one, but know they were there at that time, comfort them also. And Father, I just ask right now in the name of Jesus Christ, we just welcome you here in this room. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor. I appreciate it. Vice President, you wanted to say, and I'd like you to say a few words, and I'd like to then introduce you to Betsy DeVos, who most of you know, and some of you have met a little while ago. Mike, what do you have to say?
First off, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank families and partners for what you do, and assure you of the deepest condolences and sympathies of the first family and our family, and of the American people. As the President said last week, the American people are united with one heart, broken for what took place. But the President called this meeting for us as much to talk about what's happened in our country over the last 20 years, and to find out from all of you gathered here, by listening, by learning, how we might ensure that this is the last time this ever happens. I, along with the President, am deeply moved by the stories of heroism and courage. And I'm candidly moved by the courage that it takes for many of you to be here today. And what I just want to encourage you to do is tell us your stories. America is looking on. Your president, our entire administration, leaders around the country at every level are looking on. And we want to hear your hearts today. I encourage you to be candid and be vulnerable. Share with us not only your personal experience, but what it is that you would have us to do. And just know that as the President has already taken action, he'll be meeting in this very room in the coming days with governors from all 50 states to make school safety the top priority of this administration across this country. The President and I wanted to hear from you all first. And so I want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for the courage of being willing to be here. share your hearts, and just from our families to your families, just God bless you and comfort you.
Thank you, Mike, very much. That's it.
Mr. President, students, teachers, parents, thank you for being here. For many of you, you've lived through something unthinkable. For many of you, it's raw and fresh. I admire your strength and bravery to come and share your experience with the President, the Vice President, and the world. No student, no parent, no teacher should ever have to endure what you all have. My heart is broken. What happened last week shocked us. It angers us. And it pains us. We're here to have an earnest conversation about why this tragedy and too many others before it happened and how we can work to find solutions. We're here to listen, to gain your important perspective on ways to reduce violence and to protect students. Our hope is that by talking and by listening, we can make something that was unthinkably bad something good. And your loss and your trauma must never be in vain. So thank you again for being here, and let's get started.
Thank you very much, Betsy. I just want to say before we really begin, because I want to hear you, but we're going to be very strong on background checks. We'll be doing very strong background checks, very strong emphasis on the mental health of somebody, and we are going to do plenty of other things. Again, next week the governors are coming in from most of the states, and we're going to have a very serious talk about what's going on with school safety. Very important. And we're going to cover every aspect of it. There are many ideas that I have. There are many ideas that other people have. And we're going to pick out the strongest ideas, the most important ideas, the ideas that are going to work, and we're going to get them done. It's not going to be talk like it has been in the past. It's been going on too long, too many instances, and we're going to get it done. So, again, I want to thank you all for being here. And I'd like to hear your story, and I'd also like to, if you have any suggestions for the future based on this horrible experience that you've gone through, I'd love to have those ideas. All right? How about this story?
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. President, for having me here. My name is Julia Cordover, and I'm from Stoneman Douglas High School, and I was there during the shooting, and I'm a survivor. And I want you guys all to emphasize the point that I survived. I was lucky enough to come home from school, unlike some of my other classmates and teachers. And it's very scary, and knowing that a lot of people did not have this opportunity to be here still is mind-blowing. And I feel like there is a lot to do, and I really appreciate you hosting me and what you were saying. I'm confident that you'll do the right thing, and I appreciate you looking at the bump stocks yesterday. That means it is definitely a step in the right direction, and I think we can all agree on that. There's definitely a lot more to go, but I am just grateful that I'm here, and we can try to work out something, maybe compromise on some solutions, so this never has to, no child, no person in this world will ever have to go something through so horrific and tragic, and my thoughts and prayers are out to everyone there, so thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Blank. I go to Stoneman Douglas, and I was actually in the second classroom that was shot at. In my mind, as a kid, nothing ever that horrible should ever have to happen to you, and you can't even think about it. It doesn't even seem real still. Everything seems fake. I don't even know what's going on. It's just crazy. Everything happening. It's just so tragic. Thank you for everything. You've done a great job, and I like the direction that you're going in. Thank you.
My name is Melissa Blank. Jonathan is my son. And I am a teacher's aide at Westlakes Middle School that was also on lockdown. So I couldn't get in touch with my son to find out if my son was alive or not. I these families. My heart is just broken for my whole community. We're coming together. I feel for all the families who have lost, and I feel for the ones that are here because we now have almost a guilt like I have. Why not my child? Which I feel bad saying. I'm happy that he's here with me, but I feel so bad for all of you who have lost so many. And I'm just begging for a change. We need a change.
Thank you.
Kip, do you mind, may I pass the microphone back to my daughter? Because I think she has some nice solutions, and if that's okay with you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carson Abt. I'm a junior, and I was at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas at the time of the shooting. And I know that there are a lot of different solutions that we can go through to help eradicate this issue, but one that stuck out to me was about all the drills and protocols that my teachers had to go through. They knew what to do once the code red for an active shooter was announced, but through research I found that only 32 states require drills. But of those 32 states, more than half of the counties do not go through the drills because they want to spend their resources towards something else. And I know that a bill was also passed that declared that each school has to go through one drill each month. But I know that my school, we go through fire drills every month, and we have not had our lockdown drill yet this year. And I think a change that will increase all the trainings and protocols. So if, God forbid, another shooting does happen, at least all the teachers will be prepared and can hopefully keep their students calm.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please.
Hi, my name is Ariana Klein. I would just like to say thank you for leading this country. You're a great leader, and I appreciate the direction that the country is going in. I'm a junior. I attended Stoneman Douglas, and I just want to say that everybody right now is so stuck on what they believe that they're not even listening to what other people believe. We need to listen to the other points of views. We all need to realize that we all have different points of views, and that we need, this solution is not going to be a singular thing. It's going to be multifaceted, and it's going to be created by a collection of different people working together, and we all have to realize that we all have our opinions, and together we're going to be able to work to a solution. And this is not just Parkland anymore. This is America. This is every student in every city and everywhere. It's everybody. It's not small. It's everything. I'd just like to say thank you for having us, giving us the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
My name's Fred Abt. I'm Carson's dad. I'm going to pass the microphone along to some of the other students. If we have a chance later on, perhaps I'll speak or other parents could speak, but I'd like the students to get their chance.
Very nice.
My name is Justin Gruber, and I was at the school at the time of the massacre. I'm only 15 years old. I'm a sophomore. 19 years ago, the first school shooting Columbine at Columbine High School happened, and I was born into a world where I never got to experience safety and peace. There needs to be a significant change in this country because this has to never happen again, and people should be able to feel that when they go to school they can be safe. And because there needs to be a change, people need to feel safe, and parents shouldn't have to go through the idea of losing their child. As I know, for my dad, he was panicking, and he couldn't imagine it. So that shouldn't even be a possibility that should go through a parent's mind when there needs to be some change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm Carrie Gruber, Justin's dad. And I'll be brief. You know, Justin was texting me hiding in a closet saying if something happens, I love you. Something happens, I love you. And you can't imagine what that's like as a parent. And then his phone died, and I didn't know what happened for another hour or so. So 17 lives were gone. I was lucky enough to get my son home, but 17 families. It's not left and right. It's not political. It's a human issue. People are dying. And we have to stop this. We have to stop. If he's not old enough to buy a drink, to go and buy a beer, he should not be able to buy a gun at 18 years old. I mean, that's just common sense. We have to do common sense. Please, Mr. Trump, these are things we have to do. In Israel, you have to be 27 years old to have a gun. You're only allowed one. They tax the guns. You have to go through significant training. We got to do something about this. We cannot have our children die. This is just heartbreaking. Please. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shannon Morris. I'm a local administrator for a school in D.C., and I really want to continue the conversation for our students.
Hi, my name is Vielka Marcus, and I'm also a local educator here in Washington, D.C. For Friendship Public Charter Schools. So I will allow our students that are here to voice their opinions as well as give some of their ideas to do that at this time. And my condolences and my heart truly go out to not just the families that have lost children in this horrific incident that has occurred, but also to our families here in the District of Columbia that experience gun violence outside of our schools that directly impact our schools because they are our students.
Hello, my name is Alea Barnett, and I go to the Friendship Technology Preparatory Academy in the heart of Southeast DC. My condolences to every family here that experienced the shooting and all the students that experienced that. And I'm here on behalf of my school and all of the friendship schools in DC to be able to prevent those kind of things happening at our school, because in Southeast DC, we do encounter a lot of violence and things most of the time at night, but a lot of the times it's in like the daytime too. So our schools, we do take preventative measures and everything to stop that. Like we check bags at the door and everything, and it does make us, at first we're like, no, we don't want to do this, but then we realize it's for our safety. But we wanted to make sure that it continues and that nothing can ever slip up to for these things to happen, like in school, counseling for our students who are struggling with fear and bullying. Bullying triggers emotions that will make a student want to bring like a weapon to school to protect themselves or to get revenge for a person who that did something to them. So we just want to have a lot of preventative measures to be in the schools and also outside of school to make sure that nothing can happen to us while we're in school.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, Mr. President. Thank you for having us. I'm Christine Hunchofsky. I'm the mayor of the city of Parkland. Thank you. We have a great city. It's been one of the safest cities in America, and the fact that this happened in our city means it can happen anywhere. We are blessed that we are a very close-knit, family-oriented city, and our community is coming together. We lost 17 lives, but the ripple effects throughout the community are devastating. I have spent the last week going to funerals. Friends of mine lost their children. We have to, at some point, care enough and be strong enough to come up with solutions. And I hope we will. And if I might, I had two parents who lost children this past week text me some of their thoughts, if I might share them with you. Thank you. I spoke to Jennifer and Tony Montalto. They just had buried their daughter, Gina, yesterday. And their comments were, so Tony is an airline pilot, and he said he supports the Second Amendment, but he does not believe there's a need for assault rifles. He also said that the FBI, there were signs missed, and it reminded him of 9/11. So we do have to work on making sure that our protocols are in place so that people don't slip through the cracks, literally in this case. We also talked about the red flag laws. I think there's a little progress being made in Florida now on the red flag laws, which is when somebody shows signs of hurting themselves or someone else, you can take their gun away from them. Fred Guttenberg, the service for his daughter Jamie was last week on Friday, and he would like the administration to publicly acknowledge the role of guns. Now, these two parents talked about guns, and there are absolutely lots of areas where there's room for improvement. Lots of areas, from mental health, from teacher training, but also part of that is also the gun issue. So it's not that it's just those and not the gun, it's all of them. And in the debate world, in the high school debate world, the kids talk about when they bring up legislation, you want to have impacts. You're not bringing up legislation that doesn't have a positive impact. And what is the positive impact of having legislation that stops assault rifles, bans assault rifles? It could save a life. And that needs to be a priority in any case. And when we talk about rights, so we have the right for free speech. But if free speech in any way endangers someone, it gets restricted. And I think I appreciate that we're coming here to listen, and I appreciate that we're coming here to look at all different perspectives, because we need action and we need to be solution-oriented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right, you've been watching a riveting exchange here between parents, administrators, students themselves, who were at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. The most moving moment, a father of a 17-year-old who said that he was lucky to have his child with him, or 15-year-old should say. 17 other sets of parents were not so lucky, and that this must end. Maybe it's a matter of the gun laws themselves. Maybe it's a matter of who gets access to guns and when, what kind of background checks are required and how, and whether agencies can all be on the same page, and how quickly that can be addressed. Please stay tuned to Fox News Channel and this Fox station for continued coverage of this story. This has been a Fox News special report. I'm Neil Cavuto in New York. To our Fox News viewers, we're going to go back to this session, an extraordinary session at that of the White House, the president trying to get a handle from those who suffered this event, those directly affected, indirectly affected, the president hearing them out on how to move on.
Not different parties, and figure out how we protect the schools. It's simple. It's not difficult. We protect airports, we protect concerts, stadiums, embassies, the Department of Education that I walked in today that has a security guard in the elevator. How do you think that makes me feel? In the elevator, they got a security guard. I'm very angry that this happened, because it keeps happening. 9/11 happened once, and they fixed everything. How many schools, how many children have to get shot? It stops here with this administration and me. I'm not gonna sleep until it's fixed. And Mr. President, we're gonna fix it, because I'm gonna fix it. I'm not going to rest. And look at, my boys need to live with this. I want to see everyone. You guys look at this. Me, I'm a man, but to see your children go through this, buried their sister. So that's what I keep saying this, because I want it to sink in, not forget about this. We can't forget about it. All these school shootings. It doesn't make sense. Fix it. Should have been one school shooting, and we should have fixed it. And I'm pissed, because my daughter I'm not going to see again. She's not here. She's not here. She's in North Lauderdale at whatever it is, King David.